Hello, welcome to another vlog. So I had an idea recently for some vlogs that I want to do for the rest of the year, and it's kind of ambitious, but I think I'm gonna go for it. So my goal is to do a vlog each month for the rest of the year for Kayla's Buzzwordathon. So if you don't know, Kayla from Books and Lala has created this reading challenge that spans the whole of 2021, and each month you have a certain word or like an idea, and you have to pick books that either have something to do with that theme or have a specific word in the title or something like that. So this month the word is house or home. So I decided that I wanted to read The House on Vesper Sands, and also, hopefully if I can fit it in, The House of Salt and Sorrows, which has been on my physical TBR for a long time. So I'm pretty excited about these. I mean, that is a lot of book though, so I don't know how long this vlog is gonna be, but I'm excited about it, and I kind of planned out the whole rest of the year because that's how I am. So I have this super fancy little notebook sheet here that has each month and what the prompt is and an idea of some different books that would fit with that prompt. So I'm kind of trying to knock out some of the books on my Goodreads TBR while also reading some of the books that I've owned for a long time that go with the prompts. Some of these I didn't really have anything for, but I thought I'd give it a go. I haven't really participated in Buzzwordathon this year very much because I've just kind of been mood reading whatever I wanted to read. So I haven't really been focusing on what the prompts were, but I thought it might be kind of fun to just see if I could do it for the next, few months. Because I kind of started my channel like at a random, middle of the month, middle of the year. So I was kind of like, well, it's not going to be a year-long thing, but I could do it for the rest of 2021, like why not, So I have a lot of ideas of books I want to read, and my library just got a bunch of new books in that also fit with a lot of these prompts, so I'm excited about that as well. And I actually have time to film this vlog, and I've been so excited to film it, and I haven't had time because I've been in finals for university. And I just took my last final yesterday, and I'm done. I'm officially done. Amen. So now it's time to read because work doesn't start for another like 4 or 5 days. I just picked up The House on Vesper Sands from the library because my hold came in a couple days ago. So I'm like 80 pages in now, and I have to say, it is not what I was expecting. I don't know what I was expecting. I knew it was like a gothic mystery set in London, but I didn't really know anything more than that, and I haven't heard a lot of people talk about it, so I thought I'd just pick it up on the whim. I really love the title, and I didn't realize till I picked it up there's all these like little moths on the cover, and I don't know what the moths mean, but I'm assuming that they're a symbol for something. So this is set in London in 1893, and it kind of gives me like Stalking Jack the Ripper vibes, or just like the stories about Jack the Ripper in general, because it mentions like being in Whitechapel, and there's these girls that are going missing and they don't really know why, and they're like working class women, and they're just kind of like mysteriously disappearing. And so it's supposed to be like an investigator guy and his nephew who are going to investigate these disappearances and figure out what's going on. And so that's what the blurb says. But then I read the prologue, and the prologue is kind of slow. The writing is kind of a little bit dense at first, but the story is a lot more unique than I thought it was going to be. So the prologue is from the perspective of this woman named Esther, and she seems to be working for this rich guy, and she's a seamstress, so she goes to his house to work on like a garment of some sort, and we're in her mindset, and you realize pretty quickly that she's in a weird situation, and it kind of sounds like she discovered some sort of like sinister plot that she wasn't supposed to know about, and so she's kind of taking it upon herself to thwart this whole plan that she's uncovered, and it's kind of like vague and mysterious. And at the end of the prologue, there's a suicide scene, so trigger warnings for that. But it seems like she knew something about the disappearances of these girls, and it kind of goes from there. But I thought it was interesting that the prologue is kind of from the point of view of the person who dies. You know how like the beginning of every mystery and crime show, there's always like, you know, somebody's dead and then the investigators come, whatever. But like this, the prologue is from the dead person's perspective. And then the first chapter starts with this guy, Gideon Bliss, who is the investigator's nephew. And he's really cool. I like him a lot. And it kind of goes into his life and his involvement in this whole case. So that's definitely interesting. But I'm also not sure exactly what the mystery is, because from the prologue, you know who died, you know that there's girls going missing, and you like already know who the bad guy is, because the girl who dies was in his house, and she basically is like, this guy's doing it. So I'm like, okay, I think the mystery here has more to do with like what is going on with the missing girls, like why are they being taken, and is this like related to a secret society, or because it doesn't seem to be like a paranormal thing. So it's kind of like a what's happening and why is it happening, instead of like a whodunit kind of a thing. So that's interesting. I'm enjoying it so far. The writing in the prologue was definitely a little bit hard to get into, but once we hit the first chapter, there's a lot of like humor and stuff. It gets a lot more interesting and fast-paced, so I'm interested to see where it goes. There's also this character, her name's Octavia, and she's a young journalist in London, and she's kind of trying to figure out what's going on with these missing women. And she is a real spitfire. So she kind of reminds me of Lucy Carlisle from Lockwood & Co. She is something else. She's gonna get to the bottom of it. My gosh. She is not afraid to get up in people's business. And she's funny. So we got a good cast of characters going on here. So I'm interested to see what happens with that. Since I updated you, but I wanted to show you what I got from the bookstore. So I kind of took an impromptu trip to my independent bookstore today, and I got Sorrowland by River Solomon. So I've seen everybody that I follow on Goodreads giving this like 5 stars and loving it, but I haven't actually seen very many people on BookTube or on Bookstagram talking about it. But it's supposed to be pretty intense and hard-hitting, but the writing is also supposed to be really amazing. And I've never read anything by River Solomon before, so I thought I would give it a go. So that's that on that. I also have a reading update. So I just started The House of Salt and Sorrows yesterday, and I'm already 160 pages in, and it just is a really quick read, and I was listening to the audiobook while I was at work yesterday. I just started a new job working at the library, so I was listening to the audiobook while I was shelving magazines and stuff, and honestly, I don't really like the audiobook very much. It's kind of confusing. This is a young adult book about this group of sisters, and originally there was 12 sisters, and then some of them have like tragically died, and their father has just remarried, and so they have a stepmom, and their stepmom kind of sucks. And yeah, so this is basically a book that's trying to do a lot of things, and I'm not sure. It kind of feels like the book doesn't know what it's trying to be. It's like a gothic story in this manor by the sea. It's also like Pride and Prejudice with all these girls trying to get husbands, and there's all these suitors, and they're going to dances and stuff. It's also kind of a murder mystery because one of the sisters, Annalie, whose point of view we're reading from, she thinks that her sister that just died was maybe murdered. And so there's a lot going on here. And I'm not really sure how to feel about it, honestly. There's also kind of this one scene where it kind of felt like it was going to become a horror novel, but then it just didn't really go there. And I kind of wanted it to just go there and just be creepy and be this gothic murder mystery, and it's like the author wanted it to be that, but it's not that. So it's mostly these girls deciding that they think their older sister was murdered, and then going off to a bunch of balls and dancing and flirting with guys anyways. And the guys, oh my god, these guys just pop up like daisies. So, like, just out of nowhere. They're like, oh yeah, old Edward or Fisher, and I'm like, who? And the main character, Annalie, she just is into whatever guy is sitting next to her at the time. I'm like, this is like a love triangle, but not, because you don't even know these guys very well anyways. So I don't know, there's some young adult insta-love and drama that's kind of unnecessary. And yeah, I don't know, I hope that it becomes more of a murder mystery. I mean, I still have like a ways to go, so I guess that's possible, but yeah, there's like some fantasy stuff in here. There's, it feels very Pride and Prejudice to me. You know, it feels very like, let's wear fancy dresses and go and kind of come out in society and find husbands, even though everybody's dying. But yeah, so I don't know. I think this is another case of me kind of just growing out of young adult a little bit. But I wanted to read this one because I had people vote on Instagram, and this is one of the ones that they picked that they wanted me to read. And it goes with the theme. It has the word house in the title, but yeah, to me it felt like this book didn't know what it was trying to be. It was trying to be a fantasy novel. It's got a little bit of a portal fantasy element to it. I don't know. There's a lot going on. It's kind of hard to follow. It's very character driven. There's not a lot of plot. Each chapter kind of opens with a brand new scene, and nothing's really explained as to like how did we get from point A to point B. It doesn't feel super like chronological. So if that's something that bothers you, maybe don't pick this one up. This felt a lot more like young YA than I thought it was going to. Like, I knew the characters were going to be like teenagers, obviously, but I don't know. I just thought it was going to be a lot more spooky by the ocean vibes. Like, this cover gives you some ocean vibes, and then this book is really pretty on the inside. So there's these really cool end pages with this octopus, and the octopus is a thing. Like, it's kind of a symbol that comes into play, but it's not as major as I thought it would be, at least not so far. And there's this like octopus on the cover and stuff. So I don't know. I was in it for the spooky murder vibes, and that's not it. It's not what it is. So if you're looking for that, maybe read the other book that I'm reading right now. So let me get into that. So I also have an update for the house on Vesper Sands, which, oh my gosh, I'm loving the house on Vesper Sands. It might actually be like 4.5, 5-star territory for me, which is fun. So this is, like I said earlier, a mystery novel set in London, but it's actually more of like a historical mystery, and there's also kind of a fantastical element to it as well, which is super fun. So I don't want to spoil what the fantastical element is, but it has to do with the girls who are going missing, and it's definitely spooky and dark, and some of the chapters are told in, I'm not sure exactly what they'd be called, almost like field notes. The character Gideon Bliss is like taking notes on the case as he and the detective are going from like house to house and running into multiple dead people. Just saying. There's a lot of people dying in this book. It's not just like the one lady who dies at the beginning. It's like every few chapters there's another body that's turning up. So some of these chapters are from Gideon's like notes on the case, because back then they had to like have somebody take handwritten notes on what the evidence was that they were finding and who's dying, and like what do the other cops think is going on, and what little things are Gideon and the Inspector Cutter picking up on. And so those are really fun chapters too. It's kind of funny too because Inspector Cutter is pretty like witty, and he makes a lot of like kind of funny comments and jabs at people, but this case that they're on has a lot of nuances to it, and it seems like there's like constantly new clues coming up, and there's a lot more people involved than you thought from the beginning. So I'm definitely excited to see how this one ends. I mean, I'm like 2/3 of the way through right now. I'm on page 250. So that's exciting. I'm sure this is going to have like a super like crazy ending to it. We also have some chapters from this girl Octavia's perspective, and I don't know, I feel a little bit disconnected from her because there's not that many chapters that are in her perspective. It's kind of like we're hanging out with Gideon and the detective a lot, and then every once in a while it's like, oh yeah, Octavia is like doing her own investigation on the side for her journalism kind of stuff. But I don't know, she's still cool. She's kind of uncovering different things because she's talking to different people than Gideon and the Inspector are talking to. So I think there's going to have to be some kind of plot situation where they all kind of cross paths with each other at the end once they all start to figure out who the bad people are and what exactly is going on and all that kind of stuff. So exciting, but I still think there must be some kind of secret society that has some connection to the church, and there's a lot of people involved in it, and it's getting to the point where people are getting murdered who know things, so they're definitely trying to like keep it quiet, but I'm excited to see what happens because this one's really good. I think it's really underrated. Like, I haven't heard anybody talk about this on Bookstagram, really. I've only heard one person review it on BookTube, and that was Missy. I don't remember what the name of her channel is, but I'll link it down below. She does a lot of book reviews for like underrated books that I haven't really heard about before, so I got this one off of her recommendation, and it's fantastic. I think I'm also going to look into more historical mysteries. I've kind of been looking for some, but I feel like it's kind of a subgenre of historical fiction, and so I haven't heard a lot of people talking about that subgenre. I found a few people on BookTube talking about that, but if you have any recommendations for like historical mysteries, and it could be like set in London or somewhere else, it doesn't really matter. I just like that kind of a vibe. So if you have recommendations, please leave them in the comments. I would love to know what you guys have been finding, because I've been looking. I found a few on Instagram, and I was looking at the library, but I didn't really see any good ones that were popping out at me at the library, but I will keep an eye out for that. That might be like a whole future video idea thing. Just reading books that are kind of like kind of like this here. But this author also has another book out that I might look into. It's called The Maker of Swans, which I've never heard of. This is also by an Irish author, by the way, which is also pretty cool. But yes, that is my update. And I will come back and say more when I have more. Time to wrap up this vlog. So I finished The House of Salt and Sorrows, and I also finished The House on Vesper Sands. So let's talk about House of Salt and Sorrows. So the ending was kind of weird, honestly. I finished it and I was like, what the hell did I just read? So I think I'm gonna give it 2 stars. It just didn't bring the sauce, you know what I'm saying? So this didn't work for me because I feel like there wasn't enough world building. Like, the author didn't go into enough depth about the beliefs of the people on this island where these girls live, and there's like vague mention of gods throughout a little bit, but they're not really explained. We don't really know who all of them are and how they relate to the humans and how all of that works, and it ends up being like a pretty prominent thing towards the end of the book. But the author doesn't really explain it. It kind of felt like the reveals were supposed to have like an added shock factor because the world building wasn't really there, which doesn't really make sense to me. So that just didn't feel on point to me. And I also am not sure why this is considered YA. Like, the ending kind of felt more adult to me, but also the world building wasn't there, so I don't know, it's kind of weird. But there's also like a graphic childbirth scene at the end, so maybe be aware of that if you're going into this one. But yeah, the ending was just really strange, and it was also pretty predictable. Like, I knew who the bad guys were early on, it was pretty obvious, and then there was this big reveal at the end, and it was like, okay, yeah, like, I knew they were bad, like, it's not a surprise. And then the very ending was super predictable. Like, 2/3 of the way and there's this scene, and I was like, okay, that's probably going to be the ending. And that's exactly what the ending was. It was really cliche. So yeah, wasn't a fan of that. 2 stars. If you want to read this one, I would recommend like getting it from the library instead of buying it. So yeah, oof. I think I'm just going to unhaul this, to be honest. But I mean, I'm glad I read it because I've had it on my physical TBR for a while, but yeah, that's that on that. And then, House on Vesper Sands. I'm gonna give this 5 stars. It's so good. The ending, so awesome. Oh my gosh. I was just sitting on the end of my seat, like, binge reading the ending because I just needed to know what was gonna happen. And I honestly want to reread this. Like, I was reading the end and I was like, I already want to reread this. I'm not even done with it yet. Because there's a lot of little hints and things to the mystery from the very beginning, and I just want to read it again and see what else I can pick up on now that I know what happens. But the fantastical element of this mystery is really cool, and it really comes into play at the end, which I liked. And it wasn't predictable at all. Like, I wasn't sure who the bad guys were, and I wasn't sure like who all was involved in this and who knows what and what's going on. So it really all comes together at the end, and I liked it quite a bit. I think this might be a series. It kind of leaves off like there's going to be more books, and this is a library copy and it says Inspector number 1 on the spine, but I haven't seen anything online about there being a sequel yet because this just came out in January of 2021, so it's brand new. But yeah, if anybody knows if there's going to be a sequel, please let me know because I want more. And the characters were so good in this one. Oh my gosh, the characters were really good in this one. I liked them a lot. Octavia and Bliss and Inspector Cutter, oh my gosh. And it's cool because all the characters kind of come together at the end and talk to each other about what they know. It's really cool. It ends up being kind of like a found family thing at the end, which is pretty rad. But yeah, also, it's not intentional at all, but both of these books have a lot of death. Like, many people die in them, so that ended up being kind of interesting. It was like everybody was just getting murdered left and right during this whole reading vlog experience. Yeah, this is a really cool murder mystery set in London, and the characters are really fun and really sweet. So it kind of scared me at the end because I was like, what is going to happen to these characters? Like, is everybody going to be okay or not, or what? But it was really fantastic. I highly recommend this one if you haven't picked it up yet and you want a fun murder mystery that's also like snarky and interesting and has a lot of different nuances to it and layers. So yeah, I would definitely recommend this if you haven't read it yet, because I think it's kind of an underrated one, honestly. But yeah, that's the vlog. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to like and subscribe and comment if you enjoyed this video or if you've read any of these or have any thoughts. Also, I would love some murder mystery recommendations if you have any, because I'm kind of getting more into that at the moment. But yeah, also remember to check out my other platforms below. I have an Instagram, Twitter, Goodreads, if that interests you at all. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!